a city once again looking to the sky. For residents of Mekelle, the sound of an aircraft overhead carries a memory that many had hoped was finally behind them. On Thursday morning, that memory returned. A drone strike was reported in Mekelle at around 11 a.m. local time, with initial reports saying that civilians, including mothers and children, were wounded. A hospital official told the Standard that at least 13 people were injured, including 5 children. The reports have not only shaken residents of Tigray's capital, they have also intensified fears that the political confrontation between Tigray's authorities and Ethiopia's federal government is moving from rhetoric and military mobilization towards a new and potentially devastating phase of armed conflict. Mekelle is no stranger to air attacks. During the Tigray War, the city was repeatedly targeted from the air. In August 2022, an airstrike hit an area around a kindergarten, killing civilians and injuring others. The attack became one of the most painful reminders of how the war had brought the battlefield into the lives of ordinary residents. Thursday's attack therefore carries a significance beyond the immediate injuries. For people who lived through the previous war, the question is not simply what was hit. It is this the beginning of another war? That fear has been growing for months. The latest strike comes only days after another drone attack was reported near Mekelle. On August 18, Tigrayan authorities accused Ethiopia's federal government of carrying out a drone strike on a farmer training center in Dendera, about 15 kilometers outside Mekelle. Tigrayan authorities said there were no injuries, while an AFP source who witnessed the aftermath said at least one fighter had been killed and suggested 2 others may have been wounded. The Ethiopian federal government had not publicly commented on the allegation. The developments are occurring against a much wider backdrop of deteriorating relations between Mekelle and Addis Ababa. Tensions have risen sharply in recent months, with both sides accusing the other of preparing for a new conflict. Reports have also described military build-ups around Tigray. The Pretoria Agreement of November 2022 was a major phase of the previous war, but it did not eliminate the political disputes at the heart of the conflict. 4 years later, those unresolved questions are again becoming dangerous. From political confrontation to military confrontation, the relationship between the federal government and Tigray's authorities has deteriorated over a series of political and security disputes. Tigray's governing party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, has taken steps that Addis Ababa regards as provocative, while Tigrayan officials accuse the federal government of undermining the region's political autonomy and preparing militarily for confrontation. The stakes are enormous. The previous Tigray War was one of Africa's deadliest conflicts of the 21st century. Estimates of the death toll have reached hundreds of thousands. The memory of that devastation remains fresh across the region. And this time, the warning signs are being watched particularly closely because both sides have experienced the destructive power of modern drone warfare. During the previous war, drones became a major component of Ethiopia's military campaign. They gave the federal forces the ability to strike targets hundreds of kilometers away without placing pilots directly over the battlefield. Research by the European Council on Foreign Relations has documented the extensive use of drones during Ethiopia's conflicts and warned of their devastating impact on civilians. The Ethiopian government acquired drones from several foreign suppliers, including Turkey, Iran, China, and the United Arab Emirates. That history makes today's reports particularly significant. The drone can cross the distance between a military position and a target in minutes. For civilians, there is a little warning. And unlike artillery fire, which can sometimes be heard approaching, a drone may remain almost invisible until the explosion. What is known, and what remains unclear? Several important questions remain unanswered. Who carried out Thursday's strike? What was the intended target? Was the strike aimed at a military position, or did it hit a civilian area? How many people were actually injured? Were there fatalities? And was this an isolated operation, part of a broader military campaign? At the time of writing, independent verification of several details remains difficult. Tigrayan sources have accused Ethiopian federal forces of carrying out the strike. The federal government has not, at the time of the available reporting, publicly accepted responsibility. That distinction matters. In a rapidly escalating conflict, competing claims can quickly become part of the information war. Reports from social media can spread before journalists and independent investigators are able to establish what happened on the ground. For that reason, the most responsible account at this stage is to distinguish clearly between what has been independently confirmed and what has been alleged by the parties involved. The human cost. But behind the competing political narratives are people, mothers, children, families who have already lived through war. The reported injuries in Mekelle today are not merely statistics. They are a reminder of how quickly political disputes can become personal tragedies. A child injured by a drone strike does not experience the conflict as a debate over constitutional authority, regional autonomy, or political legitimacy. For that child, war is the sound of an explosion, the panic of adults, the rush to a hospital, and the fear that follows. And for parents who survived the previous war, today's attack may reopen wounds that never completely healed. Mekelle is watching what happens next. The immediate danger may not be the single drone strike itself. It is what comes after it. If the attack leads to retaliation, and retaliation produces another response, a cycle can develop rapidly. That is how limited confrontations can become wider wars. The international community has already expressed concern about renewed fighting in Tigray. Earlier this year, after drone attacks in Funshes and Legion, the UN Secretary-General called on parties to exercise restraint. The same warning has become increasingly relevant again. The 2022 peace agreement demonstrated that a negotiated settlement is possible. The challenge now is preventing the region from reaching the point where another peace agreement becomes necessary. A city that cannot afford another war. Mekelle has rebuilt parts of its life since the end of the war. Businesses have reopened. Students have returned to classrooms. Flights have resumed. Families have tried to rebuild their lives. But peace is more than the absence of fighting. It is the confidence that tomorrow will not bring another air raid. Thursday's drone strike has shaken that confidence. Whether it becomes an isolated incident or the opening chapter of a new conflict will depend on what Ethiopia's federal government and Tigray's leaders do next. For the people of Mekelle, however, the message from today's attack is painfully familiar. The war may have ended in 2022, but the fear of war never completely left. And today, once again, residents of Tigray's capital are looking to the sky.